Hello. Thank you all for coming to the Lawrence Tech Library this evening. I hope you all found your way with ease. I'm Cynthia Simpson. I'm the Executive Director of Library Services here at Lawrence Technological University Library. And it's always a pleasure to gather in this space. An academic library not only houses books and journals, but also serves as a living archive of ideas, inspiration, and innovation. Today, we're stepping into that spirit of inquiry with a look at a remarkable legacy of architect Albert Kahn. His buildings helped define the modern industrial age, but it's his pencil sketches, his quiet, expressive moments on paper that invite us to see the mind of the maker at work. In his lecture, Send More Sketches, we'll explore the intersection of art, architecture, and scholarship through Kahn's drawings, tracing not just the lines on the page, but the thinking, the studying, and the imagination that went into each one. I'd like to welcome Heidi Fanes, President of the Albert Kahn Legacy Foundation, to the podium, please, to introduce tonight's speaker. Thank you, and welcome again.
Thank you so much. We are so glad to have you all here. It is a big deal. It's a special treat when we have one of our local people who absolutely has been involved in sharing the stories of Albert Kahn. He has done some amazing he's got working on a book. He's got all kinds of passion about Albert Kahn, and we're just really grateful that Chris is here to share his stories and to inspire us to dig a little deeper into Albert Kahn. So Chris, thank you very much for being here. I am the president of the Albert Kahn Legacy Foundation. We have lots of events that will be coming up. Stay tuned, watch our website, albertkahnlegacy.org, because more will be posting up there. We have found things keep getting spam filtered out, so if you don't hear from us, check our website, because about once a month we have a different program, a different event. So if you haven't heard from us, certainly let us know and go to the website and see what we've got coming. So Chris, I would like for you to come on up and be the star of the show. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Okay. In 1890, Albert Kahn was a 20-year-old draftsperson working in the Detroit architectural office of George DeWitt Mason and Zachariah Rice. That year, he entered and won a traveling scholarship from the influential trade journal American Architect and Building News. The scholarship provided Kahn with a list of sites to visit around Europe and $500 to travel on. This translates to over $1,700 in today's currency, but it was still not considered extravagant for roughly 1 year's travel in Europe. In return, he was expected to send back to the Journal in Boston sketches of what he saw and articles describing his experiences. As Kahn began his adventure, he dutifully sent sketches and articles back. As Kahn recalled nearly 40 years later, and I quote, "The articles I tried to write were terrible." The artwork was much better, however, and so after receiving the first few submissions, the editors wrote back and said, and again I quote, "Never mind the articles, send more sketches." So I am sure that there are many in this audience who are familiar with Albert Kahn, who lived from 1869 to 1942 as the designer of industrial projects like the Ford Highland Park plant and landmarks such as the Fisher Building. But tonight we are going to focus on his adventures as sketching across Europe. A benefit of this is that it allows us to hone in on Kahn as a young artist. Oops, pardon me. So sketches are used in the creative process A painter sketches a subject on paper before committing it to canvas. A sculptor might draw work on paper before attacking the subject in 3D. Similarly, architects make sketches for approval in concept design before setting the drafting room staff about the task of rendering detailed drawings. Kahn had little exposure to drawing before his formal education ended at age 11, when his family immigrated to Detroit from Germany. But not long after, around 1883, Kahn received drawing lessons in the classroom of sculptor Julius Melcher. Impressed with Kahn's progress in sketching, Melcher's recommended him to start as an unpaid office boy with Mason and Rice in 1884. From there, Kahn learned on the job and worked his way up to drafting. After about 6 years, he entered the American Architect competition. Although this meant leaving his job, it was a fabulous opportunity to sharpen his skills for further advancement. The competition was open to men and women, regardless of race, between the ages of 20 and 25. Competitors were tested in drawing both freehand and mechanical, architectural design, elements of construction, the history of architecture, English composition, one foreign language, and the elements of sanitation, heating, and ventilation. An examination fee of $5, which is about $175 today, was required. As it turned out, Kahn was the only one to enter the competition that year. But the editor felt that he was up to the challenge and thought he would have won anyway. He sailed for Europe on December 6, 1890. Landing in Southampton, he then crossed the Channel to France. From there, he traveled by rail, and by December 22nd, he was sketching in Genoa, Italy, and the official start of his tour. We may think we know a lot about Kahn through his remarkable career, but details of his traveling scholarship need to be pieced together from the available information. So let's try to recreate his journey. And so this is an example of the subhead that went along with his article, his two articles that were printed in American Architect, and his byline. An article that Kahn wrote in an article Kahn wrote of Genoa, quote, "Perhaps no city can impress one more as typically Italian. Narrow streets climb up the hill enclosed with high buildings." This photographic image from around 1910 captures busy streets crowded by tourists and everyday commerce. From there, Kahn made his way down the Riviera through Pisa, and he wrote, "What a contrast exists between Genoa and Pisa. The former ever bustling, running, full of life and go. The latter dead, dull and gloomy, as if still mourning in its former glory." Yikes. But I found printed plates from the journal of Kahn's drawings, but these two cities are not represented. From here on, the images that I will show are places represented in the plates. You can view these plates in the accompanying exhibit in the library in the back after my talk. But the images that I will show will will relate to what Kahn drew. So take a look at the images, and maybe you'll be able to spot what Kahn drew in the plates afterwards. Okay, and so after Pisa, Kahn was on to Rome by January 1901. His first sketches were published in American Architect are those of architectural fragments as he found them in Rome's Forum. The scene was probably much like we see in this photos, and with column capitals and other artifacts just set on the ground, and without any labels or any sort of identification. As Kahn recalled later, I saw so many wonderful things. I just got bewildered. I knew nothing and nobody, but I drew and drew. Turning northward, he traveled through Siena and reached Florence in mid-February. Landscape sketches he made along the way illustrate his talent and probably reflect some of the lessons that he received in the classroom of Julius Melchers. To make his traveling budget last as long as possible, Kahn scrimped wherever possible and later told of even sleeping in haystacks on occasion. In Florence, Kahn met another traveling scholar, Henry Bacon. And Bacon was his senior by 3 years and had an education in architecture. He was traveling under a Roch Foundation scholarship through the Boston Society of Architects. Like Kahn, Bacon was the only one to apply for a scholarship that year. However, there was a difference. Bacon's reputation was well known throughout drafting rooms around the country, and when they found out that Henry Bacon was competing, no one else applied. But he left his position in the drafting room of the vaunted New York architectural firm of McKim, Mead, and White to pursue his traveling scholarship. By the time he met Kahn, Bacon had burned through most of his $1,500 scholarship. According to Kahn, Bacon looked over his travel drawings so far and said, frankly, again I quote, "Your sketches are all wrong. But you seem to know how to travel on a small amount. Suppose we travel together to Bologna." So they did, and with Kahn keeping them on budget, as he learned much from his traveling companion. From the dates on his available sketches, I cannot pinpoint when they reached Bologna, but elsewhere, Kahn says that they parted ways after 3 months, which would have made it mid-May 1891. In that period, according to the sketches in the exhibit, they took in Florence, Ravenna, and Venice. The American architect documents that in Venice, Kahn sketched the sometimes elaborate curbs protecting the city's abundant water wells. In other cities, he recorded Romanesque details that might have been greatly interesting to the readers of the journal who were followers of the recently deceased Boston architect Henry Hobson Richardson. Kahn later recalled, "I have never forgotten how Henry Bacon, by showing me the fine art of design, helped me to do good work in architecture, and I was enabled to achieve a high standard in the profession." So Francis Swales was another architect of the time. He worked in George Mason's office in 1900, which was after Kahn left with 2 fellow employees and struck out on their own. Swales had the opportunity to study both Kahn's office drawings for Mason and Rice, as well as his traveling scholar sketches. He discussed both with Kahn and left us with a unique appraisal from inside the drafting room. Swales also had an opportunity to actually watch Kahn sketch, and he reported that, quote, "He draws very quickly and with an accurate sense of form and proportion." This may have been as a result of the conditions surrounding his European sketching with Bacon. On a tight itinerary, Kahn needed to refrain from sightseeing while sketching around any inconvenient weather as best he could. It was not unusual for an artist to be distracted by curious bystanders, police, traffic in the way, or harassment from mischievous children. On one of his original sketches, now in the University of Michigan's Museum of Art, Kahn noted 1,040 kids around and several big ones. So an architect from Seattle, so despite it all, Kahn was already displaying the industriousness that caused Packard's Henry B. Joy to later call him a human steam engine. An architect from Seattle, William Marbury Somerville, shared the story of his own sketching tour when he crossed paths with Bacon and Kahn. As Somerville recalled, this was in France, but it was probably more likely Italy. Anyway, years later, he told the story. I remember meeting Albert Kahn and Henry Bacon somewhere in northern France. Kahn said he was going to sketch the cathedral, and we bet him that he couldn't get anything in the time between trains. We looked around, and when we got back, we found him sitting on the curb with a corking good drawing, all finished in an hour. So, it seems Kahn was on his own when entering France in late May. He visited museums in Paris and sketched examples of the decorative arts from across the ages, including medieval ironwork. One might wonder why Kahn would spend his time on such matters, or why readers of American Architect would care. But here again, Swales gives us some insight. Back in 1890, much of such ironwork was not stock work made by machines, but individually designed and crafted. As one advanced through the drafting room, they could be assigned to detailing hardware on drawings for craftspersons to follow. This could be precisely drawn with the expectation that they would be closely followed, or they could be generally represented to define the architect's general expectations. But you'll see examples of this ironwork in the drawings in the library. Swales wrote that Kahn was a master designer and draftsman of such minor but important detail, and his drawings are worth looking at more than once. So Kahn sketched these hardware details because they would be useful to both himself and readers of the American Architect, others working in drafting rooms around the country at the time. By now, Kahn was soaking in everything like a sponge. Alongside medieval ironwork, he sketched French architecture, old and new. In Rouen, he sketched a spiral stairway in a church, noting that it was designed in 1517. And he helpfully included a common chair for scale. And you will see in some of his drawings, he'll have people in the drawings, and they are for scale as well. He gave us wonderful city scenes that are splendid in their detail, capturing sunlight and shadow and the texture of materials, and the occupants' personalized touches, such as window curtains in the windows. Swales observed that the European sketches originally made for American Architect show Mr. Kahn's style of draftsmanship in its first full development. They are a remarkable set of sketches in several respects. They are the work of a very young man, having been made when he was 20 or 21 years of age, and until he met Henry Bacon during his travels, he had been without instruction more than such guidelines as comes to a young fellow who starts in the office as an office boy. But after Mr. Kahn's visit to Europe in 1890-91, he came back to Detroit with a fully developed style of his own, which simply increased in facility as he went on. Although he formally quit his job with Mason and Rice to go to Europe, he was welcomed back into the office on his return and was soon elevated to head draftsperson. 140 of his sketches were privately exhibited to the Michigan Society of Architects in late 1891. Soon after, he made news when his sketches were publicly displayed in the Detroit Art Museum, forerunner to the Detroit Institute of Arts. It is fair to say that his traveling scholarship experience marked the beginning of Kahn separating himself from the pack of Detroit architects. His profile began to rise even while he remained in the office of Mason and Rice for another 4 years. Then he began a series of partnerships before working under his own name starting in 1902. Earlier, I used the phrase that Kahn was absorbing information like a sponge. I believe this may be the takeaway from studying those sketches. This is not a complete representation of the American architect plates, but they suggest the breadth of Kahn's travels and studies. He took in the diverse architecture of Europe and drew and drew. It was all new to him, and in the future years he tapped the knowledge that he gained and turned out a wide variety of buildings. Bacon, on the other hand, seems to have used the scholarship to simply reinforce what he already knew. He was steeped in the Beaux-Arts classicism popular among the East Coast elite. He took in Paris, the center of the movement, and then bypassed much of Europe to go to Greece and Rome and Italy to study more classical architecture. This paid off well when he returned to the New York offices of McKim, Mead, and White, names that were almost synonymous with the Beaux-Arts style. When he set up his own office, his staff was small because he preferred to obsess over details himself, making sure the ancient architectural orders were properly applied. Rather than delegate such work, his office produced little, but they were gems of classical composition. It appears that Kahn and Bacon remained friends following their European adventure. When discussing in interviews in the mid-1920s on, Kahn was quick to point out his debt to Bacon, always adding that Bacon went on to design the Lincoln Memorial. By dropping the memorial into interviews, he was referencing the one building that he could be sure that American readers would recognize. It was widely celebrated as a national treasure, and in achieving its purpose, it was perfect. It was completed with great ceremony in 1922. Bacon received the American Institute of Architects' coveted gold medal for its design in 1923. In February 1924, he died suddenly at age 58. Probably his loss moved Kahn to mention him and the memorial as he did. Swales likely highlighted Bacon's influence because Kahn made a point of stressing it in their conversations. Kahn, on the other hand, never felt the need to tie himself down to one style. He rummaged through the past and present, using what was built before as a guide to beauty without feeling constrained by it. He built a large office around himself, staffed by a team that he felt confident in delegating work to, giving individuals license to achieve their very best. That said, Kahn demonstrated that he could design the Beaux-Arts classical styling if need be. The General Motors building, now known as Cadillac Place, is an example of the same built at the same time as the Lincoln Memorial. Some have argued that this is some sort of a deceit, dressing the office building in the clothing of a Roman temple, but Kahn would counter that he was simply respectfully borrowing from the past with a modern application. It is clear that he was designing an office building, not a temple, and at the time, Kahn was praised for its modern machine-like precision as a result. Kahn also could design factories, retail stores, printing plants, residences, and parking garages with similar elan. The plates on exhibit are arranged in the order of Kahn's travels, not by their publication dates. He made his way from Italy to France, then on to the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany. As you look over these sketches, consider what lies laid ahead for Albert Kahn when they were printed. The whole traveling scholarship experience was a resource for Kahn, as was the office library. It is fitting that these plates are displayed there tonight, and if there are any questions, I will attempt to answer them. Then John Sapp will tell you a little bit about the Kahn Library. Thank you for coming. I would be remiss if I didn't do a shameless self-promotion about my book on Albert Kahn, which will be is due out to be published by Wayne State University Press in October. So, are there any questions? Yes, Dale.
Yeah, have you come across any sources that state explicitly that Kahn was obligated to produce drawings as a stipulation of his scholarship? I've always operated from that assumption, but I haven't actually found writing that states it specifically.
Yes, that's, I believe that's part of the competition details, and that was an expectation. And then he does talk about his conversations with the editor, who was William Roch Ware, and he does talk about being quite struck with Ware's personality. So, anything? Yes, Tom?
I wonder about the connection between being talented as an artist and talented as an architect. Is it usual that there's a close connection between the two? Is an architect usually a relatively gifted artist? Is that normal? And vice versa? Is an artist oftentimes inclined towards architecture, which seems like they might not be?
Architecture is considered one of the fine arts, and some would argue the finest of the fine arts. However, there's a difference with architecture, because it has to be a business as well, and so, which means that you have to design something that somebody wants and is willing to pay for. By contrast, for instance, Vincent van Gogh, we know of only one painting he actually sold in his lifetime. And architects don't have the luxury of leaving behind an attic full of buildings to be discovered after they pass. So, I mean, there are architects in the audience who might be able to better answer that question, but I would say that yeah, definitely, you know, the sketching process is one of the reasons why I showed that at the beginning, was that, you know, at some point you do have to put pens to paper to get your point across and your vision. So, and, you know, it would be an interesting study to see how architects' drawings change over the years. And again with Kahn, you know, eventually he had an office and he could delegate, so it's hard to tell. Like, for instance, that sketch of the Fisher Building probably wasn't done by Albert Kahn, but he somehow, because they did several, he may well have drawn that one, but you know, these sketches allow us to actually see him write his artistry. So, anything else? Okay, well, thank you. Do we have John around here? He can tell us about the library. And yeah, because it's a special treat, because you're going to be actually viewing the drawings in Kahn's library. So.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Chris, and thank you to the Albert Kahn Legacy Foundation for bringing us this terrific evening. We're so happy to have you here. My name is John Sapp, and I'm the Digital Projects Librarian and Archivist here at LTU. Since starting this position over a year and a half ago, it's been an immense pleasure to help maintain the preservation and the organization of the Albert Kahn Library, and additionally to get to know Kahn's story. I consider the library to be one of LTU's hidden jewels, and I'm so happy that you're here tonight to experience it. The library here is from the professional collection of Albert Kahn. In the late 70s, this collection was removed from Kahn and Associates, along with the walnut paneling, built-in bookcases, and shelving, and totally reassembled here. The book collection contains about 3,000 books on architecture, art, design, gardening, engineering, and other subjects, and as a whole provides a window into an architect's source of inspiration. Kahn often purchased these books while traveling, resulting in a unique library with publications from all over the world. And on that note, I will dismiss you all to go see the fabulous exhibition. Thank you.